What's up, geeks? My name is Andrew Taylor.
Hey, my name's Matt Hall. Would you believe it? Today on Have You Played, we're checking out my review of Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. From Ninja Theory. On the PC. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Welcome to Slave Ship 909, en route to Pyramid.
Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, was originally released in 2010 for the Xbox 360 and the PS3, with a premium edition hitting the PC in 2013. The game was developed by Ninja Theory, which is the same studio who brought us DMC, Heavenly Sword, and Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And if you'd like to know more about Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, be sure to check out our Yeah, I've Played Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice video. We'll link it somewhere here. The game is a retelling of the 16th century Chinese novel Journey to the West. In 1942, an abridged version of the novel was translated into English and published under the name Monkey. It's this version of the story that gave the main characters the names Monkey, Triptaka, and Pigsy. To put it very simply, the story is about a young monk named Triptaka who embarks on a journey to India to obtain sacred scriptures that will enlighten the people of China. Triptaka is joined by several other people along the journey, and they face a variety of trials along the way. The original novel is 100 chapters long and is way too dense to faithfully summarize here in this video, but that's okay because we're here to talk about a video game. In Ninja Theory's version of the story, the player takes on the role of Monkey. Monkey has been caught by slavers and is imprisoned on a large airship. A woman frees him and the two eventually escape the ship together. The woman introduces herself as Triptaka, or Trip for short. Trip reveals that she has placed a headband on Monkey that allows her to control him. The headband is linked to Trip, and if she dies, then Monkey will die too. Trip wants Monkey to safely escort her back to her village. The reason that she needs Monkey's help is because the game takes place 150 years into the future, in the aftermath of a great war. Humanity has largely fallen to a great army of mechs that patrol the globe, programmed to kill any surviving humans. Monkey is left with no choice but to follow Trip's orders, and thus begins their Odyssey to the West. The game is very much in the mold of a 2010 action game, taking cues from series like God of War or Ninja Gaiden, but with some unique twists. While there's plenty of opportunities to explore areas and find collectibles, the game is very linear, and so is the platforming. You can't really fall off the edges of platforms, and while certain sections look flashy and intense, the player essentially snaps from platform to platform with ease. Despite this, the combat and puzzles in the game are generally very engaging. Monkey has a staff that he can use for melee combat, as well as a sort of cannon for ranged shots. There are a variety of upgrades and moves that can be unlocked throughout the game, and while it's never especially challenging, the combat is very smooth, and I think Monkey is a lot of fun to control. There's a few button prompts here and there to perform takedowns on enemies, but many of these are optional, and there's thankfully no QuickTime events in the game. There are some sections where Monkey will glide around on a device called a cloud, which I really enjoyed. It reminded me of cruising around on a Koopa shell in Mario 64. There's even a couple sections that reminded me of Crash Bandicoot, with Monkey and Trip gliding toward the camera to escape certain threats. In general, the game does a really good job at staying fresh throughout all 14 chapters, with each section of the game offering something unique. Visually, the game is bright and colorful, which is a welcome reprieve from the often drab tones found in action games from this era. The game also allows players to interact with Trip in different ways. Monkey can ask her to distract enemies, he can give her some basic directions while traversing different puzzle sections, and Trip can also hold a number of medkits to heal Monkey. Also, the upgrade system is accessed through Trip, and it's basically explained that these upgrades are given to Monkey through the headband. About halfway through the game, Trip and Monkey meet up with Pigsy, a mechanic who helps our protagonists complete their mission. While the game did contain some light humor before this point, there's a pretty drastic tonal shift with the introduction of Pigsy. The character is very crass and very horny, which is honestly one of the few complaints I have with the game. Certain comments he made were just jarring, and it felt like the writers were trying to force some really cringe humor into an otherwise serious game. I'm all for dumb and horny jokes, but they really didn't work for me in the context of this game.
But I really do get off on it.
Horny Pigman aside, I have very few negative things to say about Enslaved. There were a few visual glitches, like some weird clipping, and a few moments where I felt like I was fighting with the camera, but these were all very brief and far between. The game has a certain degree of polish and care that really helps it to stand out and remain enjoyable over a decade after its initial release. The story isn't overly complex, but there's a degree of mystery involved, and the ending has a surprising twist that will leave players with something to think about. Unfortunately, when it came to sales, the game underperformed, and it never got a sequel. However, while playing it, I couldn't help but think about Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Senua's character design contains elements that are very reminiscent of both Trip and Monkey, and the overall look and feel of both games are very similar at many points. Both games also use bits of live action integrated with the graphics, which is a really cool looking effect. I don't want to spoil the story of either game, but there's also a handful of narrative elements and story beats that appear in both titles. Both Hellblade and Enslaved have their own identities, but I'd strongly recommend one game to any fan of the other. I think that Enslaved probably flew under the radar of a lot of players when it came out, but it's a really strong title that I believe deserves a second look.
What was that game that came out on the GameCube that was a ninja? Was it called I Ninja?
I don't know about that.
I think
That sounds like a thing, but
Mike Matei did a review of it. Anyway.
what? Do you want to ask me something?
I would love to ask you something, but I think you should ask me something.
Okay, well then I will ask you, Andrew Taylor, have you played Enslaved? Odyssey to the West.
I have not played Enslaved Odyssey to the West.
I even sent you the Steam page for it and said you should get
He
it.
said this game is really cool. It is fun and good. Did you really send me that?
I did. I said, wow, I think you would like this because
I recall
you and
this
I,
now.
we played through Senua's Sacrifice and we were like, it's good. There was just like it was lacking something.
There was definitely something that I felt that had it been present, I would have enjoyed Senua more. That doesn't mean that Senua isn't good by itself.
No,
but
it's a
there's
good
something-
game.
Yeah, but there's something that there's aspects that I think could have made me enjoy it more.
And I think that you would enjoy Enslaved because it's so similar. It's always incredible to me, and it's just artists. Like, if you look at songwriters or painters or sculptors or poets, artists will often reiterate on a work. They'll refine, they reiterate. Even bands will hear like a demo of a song, and then like years later, hear like, oh wow, they took elements from that song and reincorporated it here, and
Into something that doesn't suck.
yeah, it's like
Which isn't the case here.
no, but it's really incredible to me to see how Ninja Theory took what they were doing with Enslaved and kind of like took it and refined it into something that was more of a niche experience, whereas Enslaved is kind of a God of War ripoff.
I got that vibe a little bit.
It's not. It's having played God of War and played this and played Ninja Gaiden. It's not like those games, but it's trying to be. And I think they were like with Senua, they're like, fuck it, let's just do our own shit. And I think Senua's a stronger statement. Like, well, it's just in terms of individuality. It stands on its own. I don't know, like maybe a Plague's Tale or a Plague's Tale. You know what I'm talking about, Plague Tale?
I don't think
Never
so.
mind. I've seen a couple other games that kind of feel like Senua, but it's really unique.
I cannot name any game that I think is even remotely similar to Senua.
And Enslaved feels like the same, like Senua. They're just like, let's take that and push it back through the God of War filter and try to make it an action game. Where it's
Okay.
like, you feel how they're kind of like straining against like the limitations of that genre and trying to do something a little bit more outside the box, but they're trying to also make like a very mainstream,
Viable.
action game.
AAA. It looks incredible.
Crazy how good it looks for its vintage, and it's unique. It's so colorful.
I had to ask you multiple times if this is a remaster or what year it came out.
You
in,
said,
'cause-
"Whoa, did that do ray tracing?"
I said, is HDR on?
You said, "Whoa, HDR on is?"
Whoa.
And I said,
You said, I said, whoa.
No, but it's a fucking good looking game because it has its own style, but it's not like, it doesn't look remedial at all. It's just like
It's just good.
vibrant.
Yeah. I was blown away. It reminded me a little bit of like, because thinking back, because I had to ask you, I was like, you said you did play it on PC, so it's probably the best it can look.
Yeah, I believe it was maybe a year and a half or so after the initial release, the PC version came out.
Okay.
So they did spruce it up for sure.
It gave me like a kind of visually, I'm like, okay, I remember this generation. It looks a little bit like, I thought of Gears of War.
Yep.
Specifically 2, especially in that big bulky character design of Monkey.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that feels super dated is the character design.
Because he's like a giant monster man, but it seems like everyone else, for the most part, is relatively realistic. Like
No, everyone
Trip-
is very exaggerated. Even
okay.
Trip is like, this like slender female with like
okay.
very defined pelvic area and
Right,
like
she's got
pants
the-
that go to here.
She's got the V.
And then Pigsy is a man shaped like a
He had a lot
anthropomorphic
of
pig.
Pig going on. And you think that kind of,
But these are
that
based on
reminds
these
me-
characters from folklore,
so that they visually
Not
represented.
folklore, but from A Journey to the West.
Yeah. If you give me a moment, I can think of a game that this reminded me of, sort of. It's slipping through my fingers.
1, 2, 3.
I can't remember it.
Oh, damn.
Sorry. I guess I lose this episode. It looks cool. What's
Yeah.
is the story? So you mentioned that the breadth of the source material, Journey to the West, is so large that
Yeah.
you can't really summarize it. So I imagine it doesn't follow the entire story.
No, it
Does kind
hits
of-
the main beats. If you were to go Journey to the West in 4 sentences, it hits those beats.
Okay.
But it also Journey to the West. Essentially like the Buddha tells a young monk to go to India to find these sacraments or scriptures or whatever that he'll bring back to the people of China, and it will allow them to live more closely aligned with the tenets of Buddhism, and it will enlighten the people. So they're having this like spiritual education and enlightenment because he's going to the West to find this spiritual knowledge that has thus far, not been available to the people of China.
Okay.
And so, they want to be good Buddhists, but there's certain Buddhist teachings or scriptures or tenets that they do not have access to. So having access to this information will enlighten them. And in terms of a population of people and a sort of spiritual leader and these ideas of enlightenment and what is enlightened living and what is, I don't know how to say it without spoiling it. It's just like, it's not the same game, but it does kind of touch on similar themes of, this is an ideal way of living, or maybe I think this is an ideal way of living. And the game does kind of, and I don't know if you ever like read or watched even, I feel like it's less obvious in the film, but like V for Vendetta, like at the end of, in the comic at least, it's kind of like, hey, the authoritarian power structure has been defeated, but now you're kind of left to decide for yourself what's right and what's wrong. You don't necessarily have like this like big brother figure watching over you and dictating morality to you. Similar in Enslaved, there's questions about morality and about lifestyle and about what is the best way for society to live. And these are all huge, heady topics. And the game isn't like extremely philosophical. It's not super heady, but it does like give you something at the end of the game. You're like, damn, what do I think?
That's kind of the takeaway away from it are those themes.
Yeah, and the
questions.
way it reveals them is very interesting in the context of the game lore and the story. It's like, it's a pretty big twist. You're like, well, shit, like, what do I think? Obviously you might consider those things in your own life, but in the context of the story, it's also very fun to think about, damn, what do I make of this ending? It's like, it's cool. It
bleeds over into like your actual life.
Yeah,
and
it's nice that the game is deep in that way, where it's not so deep that it's like, some games feel like a college textbook, but some games can be like, hey, also here's like something to chew on as you turn the game off. Maybe you can think about this a little bit, and I think they did that really well. Maybe even better than in Hellblade, where I think Hellblade also tackled big issues about mental health and about identity and wellness. I think that, this also tackles, yes, big time perception as well in Enslaved. It's similar, where they're trying to tackle these subjects that aren't always necessarily tackled in video games. Like maybe in Fallout. Sometimes they, popular games, mainstream games do tackle those topics, so not all the time.
Did you say there's RPG elements? Do you level up, get more powers and attacks?
Yeah, there's like there's a skill tree sort of thing that, applies to, I want to say, your attacks, your weapons and projectiles, your healing abilities, and your mobility. It's cool. Excuse me.
Cool.
Oh my God, that's embarrassing.
That's pretty bad.
No, it's cool. Like there's a cool thing that happens where if you're fighting a group of enemies, if you take too long, they'll start calling in reinforcements.
Oh, okay.
But if you allow that to happen, that's that much more EXP you'll get from that battle.
Okay.
Because you'll have more enemies. So like I was kind of milking that and trying to really like max out my character, but I still wasn't able to like max them out all the way. So there are still like choices in the build, which is nice because sometimes it's a game where it's like, you can tell if they have a skill tree that's very directional, or a skill tree that's like, hey, you can kind of build to what you like to do more.
Like Yakuza has like, it was like a wheel.
Oh man,
right?
it's
like
enormous.
Holy cow! Like whereas other games just like get stronger. Or,
yeah, it's like
move faster.
Health goes up or not. It's like, well, obviously I want more health points.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Does it feel like this game? Does it feel like it was a shame that it wasn't as successful as maybe it could have been? Does it feel like one of those games?
Yeah,
where it's like, I can't
personally,
believe this wasn't as big as it was.
Yeah, because it is. I've tried to play, the older God of War games. They're all right. God of War 2018. So glad that's getting the PC re-release and
thrilled.
more players can get it. I don't think God of War. I think God of War 2 or 3. God of War 3, I think, was the contemporary to Enslaved. I don't think God of War 3 is a must-play. Holy shit, one of the best games I've ever played. God of War 2018.
It was
God tier game. Holy shit. What an experience.
God to your game.
So yeah, I mean, I would say this is like a really fucking good game that like I wish if it had done better, who knows what Ninja Theory could have done
next.
Because they also, I think their next game after this or soon after this, maybe one in between, they handled the reboot of Devil May Cry, which was DMC, which is all, like, there was still a Devil May Cry 4, there was other Devil May Cry games, but they did like the spin-off reboot where it was like a reimagining of.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was when I was finishing up high school. It was very divisive, but it seemed like
Extremely.
overall it was a success. Just a lot of fans kind of didn't maybe not love it.
Yeah, I could see the criticisms having played both games, but like personally, I thought DMC was fucking cool. It was really surprising to me to see like, oh wow, like playing these. Again, these same developers like we've been doing with Remedy, like, seeing how they take, literal, like the actual construction of their games and apply those things like player control or level design, completely removed from like the aesthetics or the story or anything else, but just like the guts and the structure.
Into further installments.
Yeah, and seeing how they refine it and do it over time, it's like, man, this game has good bones. And you can see that same DNA in games like DMC and Senua. So it's like, yeah, it's frustrating because I think Ninja Theory is a really fucking awesome studio, and the fact that they needed to self-publish Senua, I think says something that, you know, a publisher didn't want to snatch them up and put their games out. They had to do it themselves because, you know, they've had some negative experiences with publishers in the past.
Right.
It's a little frustrating because I think they make exceptionally unique and powerful games.
Was there anything you could identify as a contributing factor as to why it didn't do as well as it probably could have? Because it seems like it's a really good game.
It looks pretty generic, doesn't it, to you? I mean, I don't know, like, just like the guy, like, I mean, aside, the colors, no, but like the character design, it's like, oh, muscle-bound guy, like fists, like it looked like the God of War guy, it looked like, you know, moving around, it looked like Ninja Gaiden, like you're collecting little orbs, like, it's not entirely unique. And if you're going up against like some of these huge titles and like, you know, God of War 3 or like the reboot, like Ninja Gaiden, you know, like all these other titles are of a similar ilk. I think it was trying to do a mainstream thing where it's like the market was so oversaturated with similar looking games. I could see players not gravitating toward it.
Okay. I think maybe that's something that we're getting away from. At least, I know online gaming obviously has always existed, but it seems like the lines are blurred a lot more. It seems like, because, you know, not to talk about the nature of marketing and, you know, the advertisements that we see, but since, you know, a lot of our advertisements that are shown to us are a lot more tailored, it seems like there's a lot more, it's more of an even ground for a small developer, because if you've shown interest in small games, there's a chance that, you know, you'll be shown more. So I think maybe it's great that we're moving towards a time where, you know, I'm shown the new Halo game, I'm shown the new Call of Duty game, but at the same time, sometimes I get advertisements for games that I'm like, oh, that looks cool, but it's clearly not a AAA developer.
No, I mean,
tons of millions to spend on marketing.
You know, games we've covered on here like Dave Man.
Dave Man's great.
Even a game like Death Trash that we covered on the channel as well. It's like games I saw online, just like in my feed, where I was like, hey, that kind of seems like it's up my alley. I'm sure I only found out about those games, you know, because of the algorithm. Yeah. Knowing that I like that fucking indie
or the
shit.
Particular online communities that you find yourself in.
True.
So yeah, I think that's a cool move that we're.
It's definitely easier when you're not just relying on, like, you know, 2009, we'll say, trying to market this game you got coming out in 2010. What do you have, like print media? You have maybe YouTube, but it's not, YouTube in 2010 was not the same as it is now. So it's, you know, it was definitely difficult for them. And I think even now, you know, Hellblade brought a lot of attention to the studio, but I didn't realize it was the same studio that did DMC.
I was under the impression for some reason that Hellblade was maybe their first title.
It was their first title they published.
Oh, that's what, okay.
Yeah, and even that, like, I was also like, wait, I thought that was their first game. It's like, no, first self-published title from the developers.
Well, hopefully that success that they're seeing will breathe more life into their old titles that seem like they're worth it.
Yeah, and I am looking forward to Hellblade 2, which is
Senua's.
I think it's called Senua's Beach Blast. But hey, gamers, let us know in the comments if we're wrong. Is Hellblade 2 not called Senua's Beach Blast?
I think it is, but
I think it is, and if you want to tell me I'm wrong, hey, expend that energy. But that energy could be even better spent telling us what you've been playing lately.
Please let us know what you've been playing in the comments down below. Have you been playing Minecraft? I've been playing a little bit of Minecraft. Do you want to play Minecraft with me? Well, shoot me a DM. But while you're at it, I need you. This is imperative, and I cannot stress this enough. Not that I just need you. You need to smash that like button, punch your screen, hit the subscribe button. There's the little bell button too, that's very helpful for notifications. So you can be on the train whenever our next video leaves the station.
Right, that's very true. It's imperative that you get on the sub train and the notification train, so to speak. And while you're at it, hey, tell a few friends, get them on the Hidden Machine train. We are on the up and up. We are upcoming. We are some of the rising stars in YouTube gaming video sphere.
You don't want to miss the boat on
No,
this.
you don't. You're gonna want to go, I used to watch Hit Machine videos and they were still good.
You could be that guy.
Yeah. Wow, these guys suck. They sold out. What the fuck?
You could be that guy.
Yeah, and that feels really good to have that over other people. So get in now while we're still relevant before we become like bloated, embarrassing versions of ourselves in the future. Anyway, let's just end this. I'm so sick of talking.
That was a long one.
Yeah, a long one. Get in now before we have to stop making jokes like that.
Yeah, a big one.
Yeah.
I'm sweating.